My name is Alan Judd, and I'm here to introduce you to the historic market town of Battle. Battle, so named because it was the site of the famous Battle of Hastings in 1066, although it's not in Hastings. We are in fact 6 miles inland from Hastings. And what better place to start to explain the history of what happened here and why than the Battle Museum of Local History, where first of all we'll look at some of the weaponry that was used. Now, one of the most interesting exhibits in the museum, found at the site of the battle, is this axe head, verified as the kind of axe head that was certainly in use at the time. And this is what the axe head would have looked like at the time. This replica was made with the exact same techniques as would have been used in 1066. And this axe would have been used to kill men, but not only men, I'm afraid horses too. The battle and the events leading up to it are very well known, and they are portrayed in the famous Bayeux tapestry, a copy of part of which is on display in the museum. The Bayeux tapestry is not the only tapestry that tells us about the Battle of Hastings and indeed its aftermath. A much more modern one was produced recently by local volunteers and visitors to the town. That tells us about the foundation of the town from after the battle in October 1066 to the founding of St Mary's Church in 1115. This is Natasha Williams, English Heritage's property manager for properties in Sussex. She's going to tell us how the battle came to be fought here and what happened. Natasha, why here? Why was the battle fought here? Why do we have the abbey here?
The story starts with Edward the Confessor, who was king at the start of 1066. He died in January and he didn't have an heir, so it left a vacuum for the Kingdom of England. Multiple contenders who wanted the throne. This went on for pretty much the whole year and then culminated in October with the Battle of Hastings. This is what we term as the battlefield now. Now you've got to remember, at the time there were no buildings here. The landscape has changed a lot and it would have been over this whole area. The daffodils would not have been here. It wouldn't have been this bright sunny day, as obviously it was in October. So the landscape will have changed quite dramatically.
So can you tell us exactly what happened and where?
So we're now standing on what is known as Cenacle. This is the site of the battle, and as you can see, the slope here is very important to what happened. You can see a little bit of a slope now, but you just need to imagine it went a lot further up because they levelled off the hilltop when they built the abbey. So this is the spot that Harold chose to stand against William. William was coming from the coast and Harold knew that he would be making his way to London. So he picked out this hillside because it was the perfect place to defend and William had to come past it. He effectively surprised William because William didn't expect Harold to be here quite this quickly. So at the top of the hill, Harold formed his shield wall, and all he had to do was hold that shield wall until William arrived and the battle continued.
Can you tell us a little more about the shield wall, what exactly it was and how it happened?
The Saxon shield wall was a traditional Saxon tactic for warfare. They'd used it numerous times before and it was generally very successful. They would pick their battleground, so the top of the hilltop, the Saxon army would have spread out probably about a mile long, all standing with their shields in front of them, and they formed a very formidable defence. All they had to do was stay at the top of that hill. William was at the bottom. His challenge was making his way up the hill bearing in mind they had all their armour on, they were carrying extremely heavy weapons. It was enough of a feat just to make it to the top, let alone try and fight anyone with that wall in front of you.
Natasha, can you describe to us what happened that day in October 1066 on this spot?
You have to use your imagination. So 14th of October 1066, you had Harold's Saxon army at the top of the hill, and you had the Norman army at the bottom. Saxons with their shield wall, the Normans raring to go to come up, but it was a bit of a standstill. Etiquette of battle, who would go first? Now, one of William's justers, a gentleman named Taillefer, rode his horse in the middle of the two lines, shouting songs, mocking the Saxons, a bit of warfare cries beforehand, and one of the Saxon army archers got a bit excited and shot him, which was effectively the start of the battle. The Normans rushed forwards. All the Saxons had to do was stand firm with their shield wall, and the Normans rushed up the hill but couldn't get anywhere. And this happened a couple of times before William realised they had to change their tactics. He came up with a plan. He got a couple of his troops to rush forwards, but then retreat, acting fearful. He did this a couple of times until the Saxons got excited. They thought that they were winning, they'd made a breakthrough. The Norman army was retreating, and they followed them down the hill, effectively breaking the shield wall. And this was the turning point for William. He was able to now come round the back of them and attack them from multiple sides. Once the shield wall had been broken, the Norman army were more powerful, they had more improved weaponry, and they hadn't just fought a battle up in York like the Saxons had. So it was only a matter of time before the battle was decided.
We can say then that it all ended here. Harold was killed. We'd have been surrounded by blood and gore and bodies and goodness knows what else at this spot.
Yes, well, should we go have a look? This is said to be the spot where Harold was killed. The high altar of the abbey was placed here specifically to commemorate that. Now, when he was killed, his body was so badly mutilated that they had to bring in his wife to identify it later on. And William, he was very religious, so he wanted to build something on the site to give penance to all the blood that had been shed. Hence the reason that this Benedictine monastery was built on this very site.
And so the town of Battle grew up around the abbey, around this?
Yes. Yeah, where the Benedictine monks couldn't sustain themselves, they needed craftspeople, skilled labourers to come and help them establish community here, which is how the town grew up around the abbey. And they even built the church that you see in the background here as a place for the townspeople to worship.
And we'll be going into that church in a later instalment.
Every year, on the weekend nearest the 14th of October, English Heritage holds a reenactment of the Battle of Hastings here at site. It involves reenactors from not only England but Europe as well. We get people coming over from Normandy, and it attracts thousands of visitors from all over the world who come specifically to see the reenactment. It's a great event. Not only is there the battle, there's weaponry demonstrations and living history, so you get to see people as they were in 1066